seeing you. And for folks who are watching this on Rudy Blair Entertainment Media, rudyblairmedia.com, we were supposed to do this several days ago, but the day we were supposed to do it, the whole Rogers thing happened. I was affected. You weren't affected, were you?
I'm on Bell, but it's the same level of frustration.
And that was definitely frustration because I had a whole bunch of interviews set up, and I always enjoy talking to you too. So I'm just curious, man. I mean, what are your thoughts before we get into what we're going to talk about? What actually happened? Because yeah, it affected a lot of people. Did it affect you in any way, even though you were on Bell?
Uh, no, yeah, I think my iPhone mightn't have gone through a few times, but no, it didn't. It didn't too much. Um, I like to blame it on some geek in his mother's basement in Leningrad with a can of Cherry Mountain Dew beside him, taking orders from Putin. But if the Rogers family didn't fight now, they certainly fought after that occurred. It's look, bro, we're at the mercy of so many forces beyond our control in the run of every day that with a snafu like this, everyone makes the assumption that the government's got it under control, right? Because everything is so interconnected in the technological world.
Mm-hmm.
It's, they always make jokes that the preppers are always buying in bulk at Costco to prepare for the day when the solar flare knocks out the grid and we're all back in caves again. But I'm not sure what the hell happened. I mean, it's far beyond my purview to understand those machinations. It's amazing I even managed to hit the Zoom link properly for you.
It's
What do you think happened?
you know what? I mean, they're talking about what happened. It's just what a way to really mess up a lot of people, and because we rely on these things. But you know what the thing is, though, too. This is where comedy is so important because when we have days like that, comedy is a great way to relieve that stress. To hear the commentary from comedians like yourself on situations like that, but just to know that there are people like yourself that we can go to and just get a good laugh. In fact, I've been
Well, I'd like
watching.
to think that some of my comments are a hell of a lot funnier than the explanation I just gave you.
You would hope.
That
You would
caught me by
definitely.
surprise, man.
You would definitely. You would definitely hope. Like I said, I always enjoy talking to you, and
Thanks, buddy.
um, because I always know you got great things going on. Two cool things are happening right now with you. One, of course, let's talk about the book.
Yeah. I wrote the book during the dark days of COVID. It was commissioned by Random House about a couple of years before that, and I was still writing the specials at the time. And or the tail end of the series, I think, is when they approached me, and I was just too busy with all sorts of things. But when they gave me a definitive deadline, I thought, okay, this is great. It'll be a little pinpoint of light at the end of the tunnel, right? For
Mm-hmm.
COVID. And it was kind of nice because here in my office here, I had all my bankers boxes filled with the journals I kept and all the days I was on the road. That was in the days before, social media's dopamine hit demanded that we take a shot of a fucking Caesar salad that we had in Restigouche and posted on Instagram every 15 minutes. Anyway, I wrote it, and it's kind of a love letter to the country and the people and places that I I had the opportunity to hang my hat over these last 25 years. It talks about the province I'm from, some stories about some relatives and an uncle I'm named after who, eventually won his sobriety after 3 years being homeless on the streets of Toronto in the early 70s. He was from the fist fighting Cape Breton Coal Town Road, a crusty old cantankerous, politically incorrect survivor. And I wanted to honor him and say some stuff about my dad and the neighborhood I was raised in, but mostly it's about the country, and there's a good window on that world as well as the days I spent in Los Angeles chasing the sitcom dream and the impact that had on me. And what was that? A good thing about the book, unlike stand up, I mean, when you're on the stage, you gotta hear those laughs every 30 seconds, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. That's the rules of that arena. But the editor at Random House, Tim Rostron, said, "Listen, just explore the narrative more, and don't be afraid to let I suppose, the emotional content of some of the stuff I'm writing about resonate, and let the laughs act as an adhesive." So that's what I did.
What's
Oh boy! Isn't it hilarious when you're talking about the funny that you wrote?
what was this the right time? Did you feel this was the right time? And also, were you worried that somebody else might turn around and try to write something about you? Where you're going, wait a second,
Oh
that's
no,
not
I
true.
mean, yeah. Well, no one's going to be writing stuff about me anyway. I mean, in Canada, celebrity's an oxymoron, and uh, I wanted to celebrate this place that I made a living, and it was good timing because it came. I mean, I was writing the introduction and some other pieces just when January 6th came down, man, and when that tribe of mouth-breathing anarchists decided to metastasize into a cancer on the streets of Washington when the Republican Party evacuated its rancid effluvia, and they wanted to suddenly, change the course of democracy and put the coup in cuckoo. And
Yeah.
the same thing happened, as far as I'm concerned, when the truckers held Ottawa hostage for 3 weeks in February. They were basically a January 6th cheap cover band
Yep.
who were influenced by the same Alex Jones fiction, Fox News fantasy, Breitbart bullshit, and fundamental Christian pseudoscience quackery. Only they wanted Don Cherry back on television. I think that was their difference. But if you've read Pat King's manifesto, uh, it's it's bonkers. It wouldn't pass the mustard in a grade 7 civics class. And if civics, the study of civic politics, was suddenly made mandatory again in schools, maybe you wouldn't have these aberrations thinking that they can take the government into their own hands and get what they want just because they've got a sing along and diesel fumes and loud truck horns. And by the way, my uncle was in a convoy in World War II. It was the Battle of the Atlantic. He was on a Corvette Navy ship protecting merchant marine vessels being hunted by the German U-boat wolf pack, who were bringing petrol and munitions to, of all places, Russia to fight the Nazi front. And he never knew when one of those German U-boat torpedoes was going to plow into his bow and send him to a watery grave. That, my friend, was a fight for freedom. That is a convoy, and there was nary a bouncy castle in sight. So for these schmucks who suddenly had the time to take off work and hang out in Ottawa for a month or more,
Yeah.
I was wondering, if they care so much about freedom, how many of them went to the Ukraine to actually fight when freedom was on the line. It was asinine, and they desecrated monuments to our fallen, uh, berated people in homeless shelters, uh, acted like hooligans and ruffians. And where were the cops at this point in time? Man, if those marchers had been black, indigenous, or homeless people, the Mounties would have weaponized the musical ride in a heartbeat and gone Cossack on their ass.
Exactly.
And these issues, these titanic issues that are colliding in Canada, deserve attention. It's one thing to be living next door to the Colossus. 82% of Canadians live so close to the border, we're looking up Lady Liberty's skirt. And it's so easy for us to point our fingers south of the border, but it's prudent to remember that the guy who created the Proud Boys was in the Canadian Armed Forces, and he's from Edmonton.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, these thick-necked bovine oath keepers and sons of Odin,
Mm.
these radical politicized plow jockeys and rednecks who have fomented their anger into a populist caste of barbarians that liver-lipped, craven, opportunistic politicians like Pierre Poilievre have decided to capitalize on. That's a dangerous, slippery little prick, that. And I don't know if you've seen that film that he's done talking about barn boards. Have you seen that? It's
No,
on
but
the
I will
internet.
look that up. I will check it.
It's madness, man. Get some of your viewers to watch it. I love when fascists get all folksy with the Volk. because he manages somehow to talk about these hand-hewn barn boards and makes a shift and takes a tangent into freedom. And before you know it, he's talking about the Magna Carta in 1022. I thought if a comedian made that kind of shift on stage, he'd have lost the audience in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But when you belong to a nativist tribe that believes 2 + 2 = 7, it doesn't matter. And you know, 3,000 people attacked the Capitol in Washington, and 75 million Americans still believe in the big lie.
I know, it's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah, man.
But what is it that you do love about this country? What are the things that you do love about it?
For the longest time, I loved its generosity. I still see it. Its everyman quality, its lack of pretension, its generosity. You know, I remember when Fort McMurray caught on fire. I live in downtown Toronto. I'm in a condo at the corner of Sherbourne and Adelaide Streets. I remember when Fort McMurray caught on fire, there was a big, you know, those dumpster things when you're renovating a house.
Yep.
There was a giant one of those on the corner at a store. A big container, actually. That's what it was, a big container.
Right.
And they had to fill it twice. They filled it twice with clothes and necessities for the people who were in need in Fort McMurray.
Wow.
And that kind of, I think Canada, for the most part, because 82% of us live close to the border, we're an urban country with a rural heart.
Yes.
And that's what I loved about meeting people, was they just had their stories, and they weren't strident. They weren't aggressive. They were passionate, quietly so. And it was like, I mean, it's like people who are very comfortable in knowing we're living in around a really good fishing hole. You know, we've got something special here that deserves to be preserved and not to be influenced, as far as I'm concerned, by the radicalization of opinion. That being said, there was never a huge level of efficacy in Canada where we feel that we could change government. Americans always had that because they were sired by 2 revolutions. There was predisposition for the rebel voice and soul. I think that's why so many great comedians came out of America, because there was so much to talk about. You know, it was a class society. If it wasn't all those wars that they had, you know, Vietnam and the disillusion after that, it was civil unrest. That's why, guys, I was just watching a clip on Richard Pryor on Johnny Carson, how great he still is.
Yeah.
How prescient and prophetic George Carlin was
in
talking about corporation abuse of power, about government, and but somehow it's metastasized into this cancer where so many disparate, bizarre elements have entered the conversation that it's pretty hard to discuss facts and absolutes with people. And what I always loved about Canadians, and what I hope comes through in the book, that no matter where I was or what stories they told me, there was always this soul note I heard singing, this heartline hum. And yeah, it was pride of place. There was and stories of struggle. I met Indigenous people in my travels who opened a window on their world to me. An Indigenous kid who told me about the racism he suffered in high school, and how he got his black belt as a result of that in order to defend himself, and how he was adopted by a Mennonite family and raised buffalo on his father's farm. I talked to Newfoundland grandmothers, to a waitress who found the land of the second chance in Alberta. I was way up north. I took my kid kayaking to the Northwest Territories when she was 15, and I found myself at this, what I thought was going to be a really cool eco lodge that was more or less like some halfway house in the middle of the barren lands, run by this cyclopean-eyed giant of a Goliath of a man, Tundra Tom, who chain smoked Players Light and chewed pepperoni sticks and drove a float plane drunk. It was nutty, man. I thought, holy shit, if her mother knows where I took her, oh my God. But there was something, but there's something about it out there that I hope the state of mind these days politically, because it's so polarized, that I hope it doesn't compromise our innate civility, because I think that's what might have changed, because America was always taking it to the streets, right?
Yes.
Where if we took it to the streets here, there was no weapons, there was not as many guns, and now there's all kinds, and we're not immune to that. So I just hope that that soul note I heard singing in the big wide open from Corner Brook to Courtney Comox doesn't become victim to the populist poison that some politicians are taking the time to spread and capitalize on. Does
Was
that
there?
make sense?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. Was there something that you wanted to make sure, a subject that you were like, no matter what I write, whether it gets dropped or put in, there's the one thing I want to make sure is in this book? What would that subject been?
That's a fantastic question, man. Um, I guess my love of the work. I guess my love of live work versus television. I did all those 9 specials, and I'm very proud of them. The series was a Herculean effort. Both of them were Black Fly and my own, and all series work is. That's why you got to tip your hat to Mercer and Critch, who've been pumping out the funny for 17, 20 years. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just and it's a bottomless appetite with television, right? You're just feeding that machine. I mean, you can't put enough logs on that fire. And so anybody who's run a show, and then those shows that ran long in the States and the other ones that ran here, it's remarkable. But that's what I wanted to get across. I wanted to get across to the audience who may not know what stand up really does for your self respect, for your confidence, for your sense of place in this world, for your sense of purpose, and how important the audience is to validate this life force, this art form. Because I certainly thought of that during COVID when, look, somebody in front of a microphone on stage telling jokes as a comedian, doing that at home alone, and you're as good as Rupert Pumpkin in his mother's basement, right?
True.
Yeah.
True.
And one of the things I've noticed since I've been back on the road, I hit the road again in November back east, and had a dozen dates there, and then went out to BC, and Omicron hadn't really come calling yet, but people were double vaxxed and masked. They were so excited to be sitting together again, enjoying this live communal experience of comedy. You can watch comedy at home in your pajamas with a bowl of chips beside you and enjoy it. But you're not sitting shoulder to shoulder with a stranger, and they're elbowing you when there's something funny, and you're not watching them doubling over, and you're looking at other members of the audience, how they're laughing. It was wonderful. And I said to them later, I said, this is what we've missed. Not stuff, not acquisition, but being together. Because as far as I'm concerned, everything else is a spoiler on a Dodge Neon. You don't need it, man. It doesn't feed the soul. And
I,
so that's what, and it's great to finally make a living, because so many of my peers, and the foot soldiers in the tribe of solo acts, uh, so many people live hand to mouth. Nobody gets it. Nobody gets how long and hard the trajectory is, or the long hours you spend trying to pump it out, or maybe those nights you walk on stage and you're feeling sad and lonesome, and you just got to deliver, because it's about them as much as it is about you. So I always try to strike a balance between artistic needs and audience expectation. Like, since time immemorial, and I remember Carson saying this, the show is holy. The show, the show, the show, the show. And that's not to say that I put the show in front of my family, although all my years on the road and subsequent issues led to a separation after 23 years. But I was proud to be able to provide for my family. because as an actor for 17 years, I never knew where a buck was coming from. And it was always some other schmuck in advertising sitting behind a banquet table with a croissant and a coffee in front of their face in the morning, partners looking at you like they'd rather be at home waxing their beamer while you're doing the monkey dance for them to sell soap or some other fucking product. They didn't give a rat's ass about you. It was all about the shape of your head and how you delivered the product and held it upright to the light. And for the most part, unless I was perfect for acting roles, I mean, I got a lot of them, but I didn't get big ones. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, you didn't get enough to uh, sit back and go, okay, maybe I can take them on a vacation this year. Maybe I'll be able to pay for their university. Uh, so when I remember stepping into stand up when I got back from Los Angeles, I was there for 3 years chasing the sitcom dream, went down to do a series for Ron Howard's company, created by two lovely actresses, Deborah McGrath, who's married to Colin Mockery, and Linda Cash. Anyway, there was a gutting of our original cast. There were only three of us left. We went down there. To make a long story short, we were in Newsweek on Tuesday. This is the show to watch this season, the cult favorite, and we were canceled on Thursday. So our picture was still in Newsweek when we got the axe. I was out of work for 11 months, going to auditions. We went to 83 before that happened. 83 auditions, just going, no, 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 almost, almost, almost. Hey, you're going to network. You're reading for this. So there's between three of you. Not even, and you're thinking, man, if I can just hang on one more day, this is coming. Anyway, I made a point down there, and I learned this lesson that ultimately the individual is responsible for their own creative happiness, that nobody's going to provide it for you. So when I came back, I wrote a one-man show about it, up and down a shaky town, one man's journey through the California dream, and it changed my life. It was a little show I put up at Factory Theater, and then I took the best bits out of that and started going to the Laugh Resort and doing amateur night, and I did that for 6 months. And then I got hired to do a dual gig with another young comic by the name of Barry Julian, who has since accrued 6 Peabody Awards as the head producer for the Steve Colbert Show.
Wow.
And
Wow.
anyway, I stayed with it, as we all do. And you just, you get a festival, you get a good gig, you have several bad gigs, you go home, you work on it. So that's what I wanted the audience to know. I wanted the audience to have a window on the comedy trenches that so many of us make our living in. And I wanted to tip my hat to people whose work I respect. Mike McDonald was very good to me in the early days. He gave me some great pointers when I was out playing this club in Winnipeg called Rumors. And don't get me wrong, it's not like the Mormon Tabernacle Choir backed them up. I mean, when that sharp comedy mind came out, I was bleeding, man. It's like an obsidian blade. And then I saw Mike Wilmot kill at the Edinburgh Festival, and I remember watching that going, man, I've got some work to do. And seeing other people and meeting Billy Connolly at Just for Laughs and having him, I asked him for advice, and he said, I said, how did a Glaswegian welder become an international sensation, comedy sensation? And he pulled a cigar from his teeth and he got pissed off. He said, that's a question about fame. To hell with fame. Just sing your song. Sing your song. And everybody was always telling me that nothing would happen if I stayed in Canada. But he told me to keep singing my song. And I wanted to thank him for inspiring me to follow comedy, because I saw his first HBO special during those very unemployable years in Los Angeles, or months. And yeah, it was remarkable. And, or to have Rickles write on your poster, funny is as funny does, and you are. And then that's soul collateral. And then 6 months later, I'm stuck in a blizzard a Yeti wouldn't wander, trying to get to a gig in Prince George, British Columbia, while fucking logging trucks are plowing at the snow on my side of the road, threatening to bounce me into the afterlife. And so those are the rewards that I wanted people to understand are far more important for longevity than fame.
Amen to that. Amen to that. The show continues, because as we speak, July 16th,
July
Stratford?
16th, Rudy, I'm on stage at the Stratford Shakespeare Festival, believe it or not. It's the first time they've had stand-up on stage, and there's other comedians too playing at the Tom Pattison Theater, Martha Chavez, Ali Hussein, and James Cunningham, and several more. But I'm at the Avon Theater. We've got 800 tickets sold so far. There's 1,100 seats in the place. Thank you so much. I played it in 2020 before COVID came calling. Some of the folks in the administration of that festival saw me, and they thought, hey, man, he's only got a glass of water on stage and 2 Red Bulls backstage. That's a hell of a lot cheaper than mounting the Pirates of Penzance. Let's bring them. So, but they've been great to me. You know, they're good to work with. There's no politics. I can sell my books in the lobby afterwards, meet people. And this will be my last gig until I hit the road out west in November. But I'm so looking forward to this because, you know, I mean, you spoke to a lot of stand-ups and you've performed it yourself. You know that Groucho Marx was right when he said comedians are always eating at the little table. And it's a chore and a challenge here to shine a light on our craft. You can pick up the LA Times and see articles on stand-ups, the Independent, the Guardian, New York Times. And when's the last time you saw the Globe and Mail write anything about comedy?
Doesn't happen.
National Post.
Doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen, bro.
It used to. Happen. I remember, like, it's right down to
Jim
like
Slowjack
music
was great in the Sun.
Yeah, like music critics, film critics, all this stuff. Most of that is almost completely gone now.
Almost completely gone.
Yeah.
You know, what's his name? Peter, was it Godfrey? Was that his name?
Yeah.
Who passed away? Great musical critic. Great music critic. And I think, you know, they'll write about television, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'll write about film.
Yeah.
But as far as the art form is concerned, and that's why I got to tip my hat to Stratford, because there's a place that's 76 years old that has been built around the words of the Bard, and they're bringing our art form in, and that validates it. And I hope that this opens the door for other comedians to step through. Ryan Belville, he'd kill there. They should bring Ryan Belville up. They should bring Nathan McIntosh up. And a myriad others. Those are just the 2 names that have come to my head right now. I probably pissed off the others who might be listening to you. Wait a second, there's 160 more. Sorry. But I hope that this is the beginning of what's going to be a summer tradition at the festival, so that you can get a polyglot of audience. And then now there's going to be people coming to see the show who would never go to Shakespeare. And there's Shakespearean aficionados who would never go to stand-up. So I love that. That's going to be an interesting room to play. That'd be fun.
And you're going to kill it, my friend. I know you will.
I hope
Ron,
so, buddy.
I know you will. Look, congratulations on the book. So glad about it. I got to get a hold of you, though, in person so you can sign mine.
I will,
and
sir.
Other than that, it is always a pleasure. And I always learn something more when I get a chance to talk with you.
Oh,
you are a great inspiration for me. And as I said, thank you so much for the interview, my friend.
You know, we're just doing what we do, trying to do the best with what we've been given, as Dylan says, right?
So true. Thanks again.
Stay well, buddy.